Should the Dallas Mavericks trade Anthony Davis? We're going to talk about that in today's video because that's something I have been seeing, frankly, for quite a while, but especially over the last few games for the Dallas Mavericks, where they've been up and down, and AD hasn't looked exactly like himself. He's been called out of shape and things like that, and I would tend to agree. I don't think he looks anything like himself in terms of like his weight, things like that. We know for a fact he came into the season heavier, but he tried to explain it away, saying he loses weight, but anyway, that being said, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about how several other key players on this team are performing. Personally, I think that the Mavs have several guys that have been slotted inappropriately. For example, I understand wanting to develop the on-ball side of Cooper. That could have long-term benefits, of course, but in the immediate future, I don't know if that's the best usage of his skill set. I don't know if he's a point guard. In fact, I know he's not a point guard right now at this point, but maybe in the future, of course. And I think Anthony Davis, being bigger, right, is probably better slotted at the center, and the numbers will bear that out in this video as well. So we're going to cover that all in today's video. If this is your first time here, make sure you do subscribe, as 80% of viewers are not subscribed. And in my opinion, you guys are missing out on the awesome content that Trevor Lane and I keep you guys informed with here on the channel. Let's get this video to a like goal of 300 likes, and let me know in the comments down below to answer the question, should they try to trade him, right? On that topic really quickly, like I said, I've seen a lot of fans saying that, and in terms of like context, Anthony Davis was dealing with something, goes into the game, gets hurt, gets pulled, is not allowed to come back because they didn't want to take any chances, apparently, according to Jason Kidd. And we're still awaiting further information and a timeline. Maybe he'll be fine. Who knows? It could be any number of things. So I don't want to speculate on that front. But at the moment, I understand the logic of, just cut bait. It is what it is. Rebuild this team. I've seen a lot of fans say rebuild this team just from the ground up. You got Cooper. You have him. You've got Derek Lively. You've got PJ. You've got Najee. You've got Christie. You've got like half of a team kind of already there, but you kind of just start over and put pieces around, take a couple years to build it out, and maybe you'll be right back. Who knows, right? But ultimately, I don't know that that's the right decision in the immediate future, because if you make this Luka trade, you have to, I think, for at least a couple years, try to go in on this roster in this iteration. For better or worse, who knows? I'm personally higher on this roster in the immediate future than a lot of people are. But, it would be weird to not mention the fact that Kyrie also could come back later on in the year. That's something that they're waiting on. That's something that a lot of fans are waiting on. But who knows how Kyrie looks ultimately? That's the counter to that. Does Kyrie look like Kyrie? Does he come back guns blazing, ready to go? Does he need time to ramp up? Do they have wiggle room? Are they positioned appropriately in the standings to allow for that to happen? There's so many different variables here in place, right? And I think, though, ultimately, I don't know that they can back out because it admits failure. Right. And that's not the wrong thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with admitting failure, but I think that they're probably too prideful. So personally, like I've said before in videos, I think that they need to get Nico out of there. I think that the PR is way too bad with Nico. Even if they win, the PR is just too bad. That guy needs to go. Firstly, if I'm the Mavs, he needs to go. And then, like I said, you could figure out whatever else from there. Right. So while they've got Anthony Davis, we're still going to talk about it as they've got Anthony Davis. And Anthony is unfortunately in a situation where he's going to forever be linked to this. And he's always going to be, I think, unfairly judged individually as a player because he's not Luka, especially on the offensive end, right? He's not Luka. He's not able to be that for you. And the fans didn't want AD. They didn't want to trade Luka. So he's always going to be just under a major microscope, for better or worse. But on the topic of AD specifically, he did come into this season out of shape. He is approaching 33, so the runway is not very long. Looking at the on-off numbers for him, we're going to look at several key guys here, but this is basically his worst season so far since the 21-22 season. 21-22 season. That is a season where they started 21-6. LeBron was an MVP running, and then Solomon Hill happens. LeBron goes down. AD comes back. He goes down. Like, they were in and out that entire season. So that season's kind of whatever, but if you remove the 21-22 season, this is the worst season he's had since one of his first couple years. So there's still obviously plenty of time. This is comparing a short 3, 4, 5 game sample for Anthony Davis and all these other players, frankly, in the video, to an entire history of their careers. So obviously some guys can start off slow, they round into form, etc., as the season goes on. But up until now, he's not been amazing. And that's particularly hard if you're the Mavs and Mavs fans to cope with when you see, while Luka's been out for the last couple games, when you see Luka get off to the blistering 2-game start that he did, and it's like, what's going on here? Nico really traded this for this? Like, that's what the math doesn't math here, right? And then there's the ultimate irony that AD is now being called out of shape, and they traded Luka for being out of shape. That's just weird, right? So anyway, I do think, again, AD will bounce back. He'll get to a point where he's going to perform much better. But one thing about AD is that you really need to have strong guard play. That's been something that's been very clear throughout his career. He's not the guy that's going to take it and create offense for everybody, all this and that. Like, you need strong guard play with him. And so looking at that, conversely, they've been extremely good with D'Lo on the court. Now, not to take anything away from D'Lo, I'm pretty sure some of this is just because they don't really have a lot of guard play in general. So I think a lot of these guys are slotted inappropriately. Like AD right now, especially heavier, should be a center. The natural rebuttal is, they won a title at the power forward. But yeah, the dude doesn't look anything like that. I dare you to go watch a highlight of 2020. He doesn't move like that. He doesn't look like that. He's nowhere near as nimble. None of that stuff, right? He doesn't even shoot the 3-ball the way he used to, especially during the bubble run. It's a very different thing, man. And then not even that, like Coop, like I said, I understand it, not a point guard, right? PJ, you could argue, should be sized up at power forward, not as much at the 3. He's kind of splitting his minutes. But then they've got Gafford, they've got Lively, and it's like, okay, well, if we move these players around, what happens? We'll look at the lineup data in a minute. They will bear out what I was saying on AD, but regardless, they've been awesome with D'Lo on the court. D'Lo has been awesome. He's one of the main leaders on this team in net rating, so clearly they need to find more minutes for him. Conversely, Clay has not been good. You have to wonder with Clay if he hasn't just hit the wall. He's already about to be 36. Sometimes that happens. But I think shooting is very sticky. I think that he should be fine ultimately as he goes. But I think Clay also needs to have very specific stuff set up for him. He clearly came here to play with Luka and to be the off-ball guy with Luka, right? Who's going to generate the best shot quality in the NBA, basically. Like, that's just not how things are right now, especially with their lack of playmaking on this roster. So he's just kind of he's in a weird spot. Like, I think he's a guy that if they try to trade him, if you're an opposing team, you may be able to buy low on him because he's played so poorly, but you also have the idea that he could be good down the stretch. But ultimately, I think if they figure that out, he could be a much better player, because this is abysmal. 2nd percentile in points per possession, 2nd in effective field goal percent. I mean, geez, man, like these are like G League numbers in terms of like on-off stuff. I'm not even joking. So like, he's not been anything close. But conversely to that, Max has been awesome. Max has been awesome. And Max is a guy that's really rounded out the offensive portion of his game. He really started to come on right before they traded him from LA. He started to really come on. The Lakers were leaning on him a lot. Frankly, as a Laker fan, I would love to have Max right now. But, anyway, he's been awesome in Dallas. And even last year, look at the points per possession with Max on the court. 96th percentile, 90th in effective. We can keep going. 95th in free throw rate, so on and so forth. The defense is solid. This year, he's plus 28.9 in points per possession. It's 99th percentile. Like, Max has been awesome for the Mavs. So, and there's some other guys that have been really good for them too. But again, 5-game sample. They could come up, they could go down, same thing, right? But several of these guys have been really up and down. Next, we're going to get into the lineup data. But first, we have a quick word, so don't go anywhere.
Ever hear the Sleeper app? Here's a little secret. It's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but the app offers so much more. Live stats, real-time updates, and visualizations on all stats. A news feed. This is so important for me. You can get lightning-fast updates on your favorite players and teams. A real-time chat to allow you to engage with other users about individual plays and performances during the NFL and NBA seasons. So download the #1 sports app today. Experience it for yourself. When you use promo code Bulletin, you get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And by the way, they do have a phenomenal promo going on right now as well. Free $20 entry. Go check that out. No deposit required. $20 entry for free. Go check them out. Use the link in the description down below, and that promo code is Bulletin.
Thank you, my co-host. I appreciate you. Anyway, moving on to the lineup data. So Gaff has not obviously played for them, so he's not going to be a part of this. But let's go ahead and just zoom a bit. Or I guess I can't really show you that because the way it's set up. Anyway, so I'll just explain it. So the most used lineup here is Cooper at the point, Clay at the 2, PJ, AD, and Lively. This one is a plus 3.7. So they are still a positive with their most used lineup. 107.4 points per possession on the offensive end, 103.7 on the defensive end, opponents' points per possession. So they are, again, that's where the 3.7 comes from. They're holding their own, right? But when you get to the next most used lineup, right? When you look at the next couple, it's kind of crazy. And these are all, again, 54 possessions, 34, 32, 25. So like this is all extremely small sample size. I've been trying to make that very clear. But the next most used lineup here, actually, I just refreshed it, featured a switch here where you got D'Lo, Max Christie, Najee Marshall comes in, PJ, and AD. So several players swapped there. So Cooper and D-Live are not a part of this group. Najee and AD are in. AD and PJ now slot up a position at the power forward and center instead of double forwards. And you are putting in D'Lo and Christie as well. So like there's a lot of movement in this second group, but they are a plus 47 with that grouping. So you're just looking at D'Lo and Christie, and they are a huge reason why of this. But of course, Najee's had his moments; he's been good. But some of this is also just slotting, right, and also getting more appropriate playmaking in there with Anthony Davis, right? So that's kind of another thing that winds up happening here. And the funny thing about this is that this is a better defensive team in this setup than the initial group is, right, with the jumbo lineup. And I think the reason for that is that you have, again, a guy like Najee, a guy like Max. These guys are going to compete on the perimeter, and AD is able to camp around the rim more and not have to play as much on the perimeter. While, again, he's not as fast as he used to be, where he used to be really well known for that. And there's a number of different reasons, but they're also blistering on the offensive end. 141.2 points per possession on the offensive end with that Russell, Christie, Marshall, Washington, AD lineup. That is the second most used lineup for this team. Now, the third most used lineup, which has 2 less possessions, is a minus 58, and they are getting bludgeoned on the offensive end and the defensive end. They are putting up 62.5 points per possession, points per 100 possessions. So that is that's I don't know that I've seen a number that bad for the third most used lineup ever. And they're, with this group, putting Cooper back in with Christie, with Clay, with PJ, and AD. So this is a very similar group, but you're sliding in Cooper for D'Lo, you're sliding in Clay for Najee, and it's falling apart. Even with, again, Max out there, PJ and AD being at the big guard, being at the power forward and center in the big positions. But speaking of big guards, they've got Cooper at the point guard, and that's not working. The Cooper at the point guard stuff is not working. So that's very clearly one of the main reasons why they need to make changes here. Let's actually just flat out filter Cooper. I'm not too critical on him because he's freaking 18 years old rookie. Like, I'm not worried about him. He'll be fine. But the Cooper at the flag stuff is a overall net negative by a big number, by a very big number. By a very big number. So it's just not working. Even though their main lineup has been able to hold its own, they're a bit above water. That's not been fine, right? So I want to also filter out AD off the court for the record and see what their lineups look like with AD off the court. So they're worse with AD off the court in general, minus 3.7. But their most used non-AD lineup is, again, a D'Lo, Max, and then they've got Cooper in there with Najee and Lively instead. So they're swapping Cooper for AD, and that lineup is probably their 4th most used lineup, and it's been pretty good. So you can really see that they are also staggering Cooper a good bit. So overall, though, the numbers bear out several things. One, the Mavs are better when they go away from the ultra jumbo lineup, right? They're better. It's proven. But they're also better when they slot in more appropriate players as a result. Like, it's not go away from the jumbo and then put in Clay and Najee and do something like that. But also Clay's been underwhelming. Several of the key pieces on this team have been underwhelming. And so it remains to be seen how they'll go. But again, I've said it a dozen times now, 5 games in. 5 games, right? Who knows how this ultimately goes for them. Looking ahead, their next few games they got some tough ones in here. They got Detroit, they've got Houston, who have not, last I checked anyway, Houston has not performed well. What are they, 1-3? They are 2-2. My bad, Houston, 2-2. Detroit, Houston, New Orleans, right? They are at the bottom of the standings. Memphis, okay. Washington, then a Milwaukee game. So it's kind of up and down here. It also depends on if AD is out there. So we'll see what happens with the Mavs. But ultimately, though, I think that they have something here. Like they've got something here. It's just not exactly meshing appropriately yet. I do feel like several of these guys are being slotted incorrectly. I forgot they had Nemhard on the roster. Ryan had Nemhard. I wanted to see how he looks really quick, just overall. Never mind. Never mind. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you happen to be new. Let me know in the comments. Like I said, should they try to trade AD, just cut bait, etc.? Will this be fine down the road? How should their lineups look? I want to know all of it. I'll see you all later.